Welcome everyone to the launch of Arctic IT Microsoft Government webinar series. Today, our panel of experts are going to share with you how Microsoft's Power Platform can improve service delivery and streamline development using the data at your fingertips and easy to implement low-code applications. Our presenters today are Dave Bailey, CEO of Arctic IT, Sarah Jelinek, our demo queen and technology evangelist, and special guest Tim Hanewich, technical specialist for Microsoft Business Applications, D365, and the Power Platform. So with that, I'll hand it over to Dave.
Okay, well, thanks for the introduction. We'll jump right in. So those are all of our smiling faces. Hopefully you can see me. I am sitting in my truck here at a Home Depot in Mahwah, New Jersey. About 40 minutes north of here is where I live, and a little hurricane / tropical storm, I don't think they knew what to call it by the time it hit here yesterday, has wiped out all of our power, internet, and all that good stuff a little north of here, a lot of heavy wind. So sitting here with my laptop tethered to my phone and anywhere, anytime, any device using the power of the cloud and mobility here. So it's good news. So we're going to talk about the Power Platform. You have heard of Dynamics, hopefully, from Microsoft. If not, that is the section of Microsoft's technology solution that refers to business applications, business productivity, Dynamics 365. We'll talk a little bit about that. But the Power Platform was, let's say, born out of the business applications that Microsoft started building a number of years ago, and has turned into truly a development platform for low code, no code. And we're going to talk about what that means for business and how that gets applied to the different opportunity you might have in front of you as you roll forward. Power applications, what it's like to build an application, integration to some of the other components of the Dynamics business application space, and what it means to have an agile platform. That word agile gets tossed around a lot, so we're gonna discuss it in the context of an application platform. Most of what we're focusing on today is for application in the state, local, and federal government space. So we have Sarah on board with us today. She's actually going to build a Power App live to show you some of the simplicity and capabilities of that platform. Then we have Tim from Microsoft to talk about Power BI. Now, the data that these applications collect, simplify, and automate has to be visualized many different ways, and Power BI is a great tool to do that with lots of different use cases and extensibility options. So Tim will talk to us a little bit about that. And then we'll talk about what you need to actually get started with a Power App. It is not as complicated or challenging as you might assume, and then we'll do a little Q&A. Okay. So building business applications, if you think about the world of software development, depending on how long you've been in the industry or in the IT space or just in business in general, there's usually 4, maybe 5 aspects of building a software application as we look at legacy technology. We had to come up with what the use case of the software was going to be. Then we had to develop a database architecture or a schema that we wanted to follow, a logic layer of how we wanted software to work. Then we needed a user interface to present that software, color, logo, window layout, everything like that, framework. And then we wanted some reports out of that custom piece of software. And that might have taken another piece of technology to build the reports. So really, at a minimum, 4 or 5 step process to build software in the past. Now, that became complex and costly. So most of the time, budget was what's going to drive whether or not you could build custom software. And then how much time does it take? Well, if we need new software functionality because of a business requirement that's popped up, how much time are we going to take to build that software so that we have it to use? And then what does the business expect from it? Sometimes by the time you actually build it and deploy it, the business might have changed already. So how Agile, there's that word again, is your software development process. And how can you make changes as they occur instead of letting them stack up and have these big releases and constant big upgrades and changes in how the software works. And you want automation out of a piece of software. I want to say that this application is going to eliminate things like paper processes, complex processes, where now, even in our business application space, we're looking at doing things like machine learning and robotic process automation so that we can take manual uploads and data crunch and stuff like that and build it into the app so that maybe we can do it faster. And then there's software vendors that are involved, right? A lot of complications and multiple people having to put the different ingredients into one application. Old technology that has to be maintained because of how much we spent on it. And then this is a little bit newer of an arena, and that is some businesses, and we do see this quite a bit in the state and local federal governments as well, where users in certain departments and different parts of an agency will have the ability to go out and subscribe to their own cloud services. So they might have their own budget, and if they don't have to hook into internal IT systems, but they can find something that they can leverage as a cloud application, some IT shops that are a little bit forward leaning are like, okay, that's okay. Just let's make sure it fits certain guidelines or whatever. But sometimes they do it without IT's involvement or without any kind of leadership decision as well. So maybe we don't want that to occur, or maybe we have a business need, not just to prevent shadow IT, which is what we call that if you're in the IT space. Any IT that happens, unless it came through IT, is considered shadow IT. That might just be an opinion versus a policy, but maybe we want to integrate that information now. So maybe we don't have any middleware between that new shadow IT, that web service that department put out there. So that's a challenge. And then we have existing technology that we want to integrate. And with all of those different implications, security and compliance is usually the last thing that's looked at. In many traditional development scenarios, that's the case. But when we look at the new way of doing things, security and compliance is usually the first step we look at. What are the rails that we have to stay in? So a platform, which is really what we're talking about today, a platform can help eliminate some of the variability and challenges you have listed here on this screen. So let's talk about the Power Platform in some detail. So originally it was called Power Apps, and then it became Power Automate, and then it became Power Virtual Agents. Power BI had been out there. If you haven't gotten the tip yet, it's very powerful. And why do we use the word power when we talk about Power Apps? Well, being able to use a standardized way of developing software, a reporting methodology and data structure that's going to be congruent across the entire organization. And then, okay, now we want to integrate to different things, and we want to create almost artificial intelligence, if you will, a Power Virtual Agent, artificial intelligence to integrate some of this information and take steps to make things faster. Well, instead of doing that all on little islands and separate development efforts, I want to be able to do that in one platform. So then we have this term called the Power Platform. It is an all-inclusive, if you will, platform that allows you to build, extend, integrate, report, and consolidate any kind of manual process inside that business space, and even combining both business and social information in some cases, depending on how you leverage the technology. So there's ways to connect data between systems. There's artificial intelligence that is capable of taking information from one or multiple systems, combining it and doing different activities with it. And then we used to use a term called a common data service, or which is now called DataFlex Pro. And if you're in the public sector, whether you're in a university or you're in a city, a town, a county, a state, any kind of measurable agency size that has a constituency, think about how many systems that organization might use. I'll use an education system, for example, that will have a grading system for a student master record. They might have a contact emergency management system for a student. They might have a healthcare system. They might have a meal plan system. If we look at a state government, they're going to have you in 10 different databases as a resident of that state at a minimum, 10 to 12. What's common across that? Well, your name, your address, your birth date, your phone number, your contact information. There's a commonality in that, what you would call that customer master record, and it's in all those different systems. So if one gets updated and there's no connectivity to those other systems, you have siloed data. So using a common data service that you can build applications on top of that are able to use what we call common data, or the stuff that has the common denominator approach, where we can build one data model and use it over and over again. That is what we're now referring to as DataFlex Pro from a Microsoft perspective in the Power Platform. All right. So why is a Power Platform something that we should consider? Well, I talked to you initially about there's a tremendous amount of information that we're building into these applications, schema, logic layer, all that stuff, all the different ways that we used to build software. It's very complex. If we go to a platform, that means that inside the IT organization in the business, we're going to use one set of tools and technology to build the business applications we need, not only today, but as those needs evolve. So instead of having to retrain, relearn, redo, reinvest a tremendous amount of time and money and funds into new technologies all the time, we can simplify some of that by standardizing on a development platform that's low code, no code, and easy to integrate to. So instead of using that 4 and 5 step software development process, well, I already have a schema and I already know how I'm going to build my logic layer, and my reporting engine's already there, and I'm using maybe a common data service or that DataFlex so that I don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. Think about how much faster and less expensive it would be to add features and functions to the software you need to do business as those changes evolve. So here's a pretty short timeline. You know, we're in 2020, arguably the year that everybody hopes to forget at some point. But when we looked at digital innovation as it went from, say, 2015 to 2018, we started hearing tools more frequently called artificial intelligence, business intelligence, machine learning, and software development started to really take off. Well, data and the amount of data that we generate now as a society, both in business and at a consumer level, is staggering. Moving that information around and being able to do something with it is a big challenge. So that's one of the things that drives people to use a platform to do software development versus just pieces and parts and separate applications all over the place. So I won't go through each one of these bullets in detail, but you can see if I really focus on 2023, platforms to modernize the core. So this research here from a Gartner perspective says that 65% of organizations will aggressively modernize legacy systems with extensive investments through 2023. They came up with that statistic prior to 2020. So what do you think has happened from a I need software to do X, Y, and Z perspective now with COVID, working from home, all in the education space, the state and local government space, of being able to engage with the public and still maintain safety standards and the normal cadence of business to keep that infrastructure running? That acceleration of needing software that doesn't necessarily exist to tie systems together, I think increased exponentially more significantly than 2023. I think we're there now in 2020. Right, so some of this stuff has started to evolve a little bit quicker than people expected. I'm sitting in a car working on a laptop talking to you right now using the cloud. Well, think about everybody that used to sit in an office to do their job that's now at home or some other type of alternative workspace because of the situation we find ourselves in. That stress on business applications has caused an even greater need for a platform that allows us to build new functionality into software that we've never had before. So being able to build and consume software solutions for both a web and mobile capability. So if I want to set up a piece of software to take in information from someone on a PC, someone on a mobile device, someone at a kiosk in the front lobby of my office building or something to that effect, I want to make sure that I can use all the same tools, the same data structure, the same security and compliance capabilities across anywhere, any device, and any time. That is one of the key driving factors in using a platform to develop software, okay? So that's one of your biggest use cases is I want to make sure that no matter what device, no matter what location someone's coming in to do business with me, whether I'm in public sector, for profit, it doesn't matter. I want to make sure that that is a continuous experience for them so that they have that capability, right? So being able to do customized task and role-based Canvas apps is something that we'll talk about. That means a similar look, use and feel and experience. An immersive model-driven app where I can say that this is the data structure that I want somebody to follow. So I want the data structure to maybe change the more I learn about them as I'm interfacing with them. If you think about some of the selections you make in an application when you're on the web, and you want to pick a field and then below information is going to change, like a cascading style list or something to that effect. If I'm building software that has to be conducive to the end user, I want to make sure that they have that experience no matter where they do it, right? So whether it's a mobile application, a tablet-based or a PC-based application, let's make sure that it's the same everywhere. So when we use the term low code and no code, I want to define that a little bit for everybody involved. When we think about low code, that means I don't necessarily have to write a lot of software code, and the code I might need to fully extend and build out a solution may only be a little bit, and it may already exist where I may be able to copy it from a source and pull it down into my software development environment. And then no code, which is really where that power of the Power Platform lives, means I have graphical controls that allow me to assemble the application. And Sarah's actually going to show us exactly what that looks like. So you're going to see no code application development right in front of your eyes today. So we're not using any software development code. This allows us to build software fast and save money. And it creates a lot of efficiency as that software development environment changes, right? So if you think about every time we need to add a new feature or function to a mobile application, we got to get to the mobile application developer. We got to spend additional money researching requirements to just make subtle changes. We have to make sure that it's going to be compatible with multiple different types of phone types and different use cases. So it can get pretty complicated pretty quick. So if we're on a platform, low code, no code, we can make those changes and then we can get it done a little bit faster and more cost effective. So what does less code mean? As we talked about, it means it's going to happen faster and there's less moving parts and less dependency on complex software development environments. All right, so the people that are in your IT department and even in some of your business level areas inside your organization will have the ability to make subtle changes to the software, new data features, new field values, new behavior in the software, and not necessarily have to be a software developer to make some of those changes to the application. So all your data can also be in one key place. So as you build new applications, you can tie into that information without having to create additional data sources. And then you're able to make sure that compliance and security and governance around all that data is done in one place instead of multiple applications at a time. So that streamlines your security approach as well. I talked about this, but as you think about what this means from a citizen developer, Typically, you have IT, you have a contractor, and then you have the end users, and then you have business leaders or decision makers. Think about a room with everybody on those different business areas in one table, sitting there being able to make decisions on how you're going to use software and what the next step is. So having a citizen development approach means that the end users and the use cases are a bigger factor of that development. I won't go through each of the bullets on this slide just for a matter of time, but as you can see, as we start to involve IT in business, we don't necessarily need to have a full-on developer staff to make subtle changes to the software. Now, if you have super complex things, if you're trying to program solar panels to rotate to the direction of the sun, maybe you're going to want somebody that has a little bit more development chops than what we would consider a citizen developer. The key fact here, though, is on this slide, is that this is one software development platform. So the Power Platform from Microsoft allows both the basic citizen developer and the pro developer to interact inside the same technology more cost effectively, more efficiently, and more securely, which has become a much bigger consideration. Anytime, anywhere, on any device. So ability, agility, and flexibility is what we like to profess. That is the nice thing about using a platform where I know that if I add something in, it's going to be the same for everybody that gets it once I make it published, right? Remote work needs in the future may not be in the future, right? They're already here. Remote work has become a priority for all involved. So we talked about something called Dynamics 365, built in all the same technologies as the Power Platform is embedded in. However, if I need an accounting system, I wouldn't use the Power Platform to build a brand new accounting system from scratch. If I need a CRM system where I'm going to have contact, account, opportunity, or I have a citizen type page where I want to track incidents or information, I have some of that stuff that's pre-built in some of these tools. If I'm in a service type agency and I don't want to build a case ticket or something to that effect, I can do that as well. So we have pre-built applications that are available for us as well. And then we have something here called Agile. So end-to-end with Agile solutions on Azure. When we talk about Agile, that means that all the different stuff that I build, I want to make sure I track it someplace so that I have that development lifecycle managed. So plan, develop, deliver, and operate are the different steps of an Agile process because we're constantly adding new functionality, and the development lifecycle, because it's easier and more cost effective to do, is going to never stop, right? We're constantly adjusting and improving the use cases of that software and how it's consumed. So that's where that Agile term fits. So now I want to go ahead and turn it over to Sarah. You can go ahead and share your screen, Sarah. If you're not a presenter already, I might have to make you one.
1 second. Hopefully you can see my Power App screen.
You're up. We got you.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Dave, for that introduction and to talk a little bit more about the Power Platform. So my goal today is to talk to you about how quickly we can, as a citizen developer, even as a full-time professional developer, how we can quickly create and deploy applications to our end users to be able to use. So I've done a little bit of work ahead of time because I'm sure you don't want to see me create a data structure so much, but I'm actually in what we call the maker site. And this is where I can actually create my apps. I can go and create a Canvas app, which we'll show you in just a second. I can create my data structure in here in terms of how I want my data stored, where I want to see this, what information I want to collect, be able to control security to the data as well. So in this demonstration, I'm going to show you how we can create a quick incident tracker. And this is going to give me the ability to share this application with my end users so that when they're out in the public, they're out around the building, anywhere that they see an incident that occurs, that we want to be able to track that and then be able to take appropriate action on that. So what I've done is I've actually created this data structure on DataFlex Pro. As Dave mentioned, it's formerly known as a common data service. So this is a set of tables and fields that I want to be able to record this information and be able to share this, not only just with my department that maintains the processing of these incidents, but maybe there's other people in the organization that need to utilize this same data structure. So here you can see I've got a list of all my fields that I'm looking at within this this table or this entity called the incident. I can have fields like a whole number, I can have date and time, I can have an option set where I can give people the choice to select something. I also have the capability to create forms that will make it a little bit easier for my users to interact with this data. So if you've ever used an Access database, this is a little bit similar to that concept, in creating a form for people to be able to see the fields, to be able to enter information and save records. Here I have a form designer that is very user-friendly for me to be able to add information to this record type. So in the example of an incident, I realize that I'm missing a field. I want to add a field to indicate when the issue was resolved or when it was assigned out to somebody to resolve. Through the Power Platform, I have the capability to simply add a new field right within this user interface given to the citizen developer. I can give this a field name. I'll just call this date assigned. And I can choose my data type. So here I can see there's all sorts of different options for text, whole number, date and time. For this one, I just want a date only, and I can select that data type. I can provide an appropriate description, and I can simply click done. When I create that field, it's going to make that available for me to be able to simply drag and drop that field onto my form. So here's my date assigned. I can drag this and you can see my user interface is telling me exactly where I'm going to place this field. I can add that to my form and I can save my changes. And I can continue to utilize this interface to create the user interface for my users. And when I'm done, I can simply publish my changes and make that live and available to people to use. Now, ideally, I would do this probably in a development environment, and then I would send this off to a test environment for people to go through user acceptance testing, and then I'll eventually deploy that to my production environment. But we have that flexibility of being able to see those changes, make those changes immediately to the system. Now, I'm going to show you how this is going to look like towards the end when we see the full interface that's available for a lot of our people that are in the office or maybe working remotely and handling these incidents. But now I want to be able to create an interface for people to be able to log these incidents. How do they track this information? How do they record this? How do they let me know where an issue is and be able to provide that description? And more importantly, provide a photo for me to be able to see what that situation involves. Well, since I already have my data structure built in, I'm going to go back to the maker experience that we have here. And you'll see on the left-hand side, we have the icon or area for me to be able to add an app. And I'm going to create an app that I can deploy to a mobile phone within just a matter of minutes using the Power Platform. To start, I'm going to click on the New App command, and I'm going to choose a Canvas app. So this is going to be a very simple task-based user interface that I can say I want to complete just this task of you creating a new incident. Now, when I'm coming into the ability to create a new app, I can start with my data. I already have my data created in the Common Data Service, now called DataFlex Pro, and I can choose the appropriate layout I want to use. Most people have a smartphone, so I'm going to choose the phone layout. Now, when I select this, it's going to connect to my instance or to my tenant where I have that common data set up, where I have that information. And what I'll be able to do is within this list, I'll be able to see the appropriate tables that I have available. Here's the incidents one that we just looked at. I'm going to select that table and click Connect. Now, there's a lot of magic happening here. You can see the stars sparkling and everything. What the Power Platform is doing is it's taking my data and it's building an app for me. So I could be a user that's never worked with this before, never had any experience, and I'm going to have the system kind of use a wizard to create this interface for me. So as it's going through, it's creating different screens for me to be able to utilize this data. I'm just going to skip this preview right now, and we'll take a look at what's happening. So here is my data. I can see some of that information here. I can look at the details. I can see my browse screen when I'm trying to search for records. I can see my detail screen if I want to look at the details of an incident. And I can also look at the edit screen when I need to create a new incident. How is this going to work? So immediately I can look at this information, and if I want to, I can go through and I can change some of these components. For example, this list of records here, I can see I've got it looks like a name field, I've got the title, and I've got a description. I can actually click on to the properties of this app here, and I can choose which fields I want to see instead. So perhaps instead of seeing the name, I want to choose something more along the lines of the incident date. I can change information accordingly, or perhaps I want to use something along the lines of priority, so I can see what the priority of those items are. So I have the flexibility to easily change how this information is going to appear. And throughout this time, if I wanted to get an idea of what this is going to look like, I can actually preview the app and be able to click through items and see the details. Now, none of this I created. This is something that the Power Platform had created for me through this Power app, this Canvas app. But easily within a matter of minutes, I can choose the fields that I want to have. I can then save and publish this app and make it available for my users to work with. Now, I've actually taken the same app, but just a little bit more work with it within our Maker experience. And I had the capability of working with one of our marketing people, one of our graphics designers. So I'm going to take a look at the incident tracker that we just took some capability to get some idea of what the user experience should be. So how can I make it easier for my users to be able to log this incident and have clear-cut defined a user interface when they're working through this. Now, as this is loading, I'm going to actually take you to another screen and show you what this looks like on my phone. So give me just a second and I'll share that experience. All right, so now on my mobile phone, I actually have an app that I downloaded from the App Store. If you're using iOS or if you're using Google Play, using an Android, you can use Google Play, and I can launch Power Apps. Now, what I can do here is I'll log into our incident tracker, and this is the app that's along the same lines. I want to be able to create a new app, or a new incident. I want to be able to track that information accordingly. So on this app, I just simply created a button where we said we're going to create a new incident. So this is the same interface that you saw before. I'm asking for details about an incident. So what information do I want to collect? These are the fields in that data that I had set up prior. So I can enter in a title. All right, with the weather and everything that's happening, I'll log that we have a broken street lamp, and this is a safety issue, so I can log that incident type accordingly, and I can provide a description of this incident. So this is broken street lamp at, oops, we'll get my typing right here. When everybody watches, this is when you tend to type incorrectly here, 10th and Main. All right, so now I've got my description. And the great thing about these apps is that you can utilize functionality that you have on your phone. Nothing says, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and nothing says it better than taking a photo and showing what the situation involves. So within my app, I can add a camera control to be able to add a photo. I can take a photo with my phone. I can grab it from my photo library. In this example, I'm just going to take a photo. Here's an example of the broken street lamp that we have. I'll just take a picture of that and I'll use my photo, and now I can submit this incident. So what'll happen now is this app is going to write back to that common data service, to that data, that incident table that I set up, and log this incident. Now, if I happen to be walking around and I see that street lamp, one of the things I can do is I can see, well, what has been logged already? I'll click the Check Incident Status button, and what I'll now see is the list of those incidents. So here is that broken street lamp that we just logged. I can tap this and see, oh, somebody already took a photo of this or somebody already logged this issue. I don't need to do it at this time. So I can see all that information. I can refresh this list. And if I'm looking at this list and I see the one that I want to report is not there, I can easily tap and create a new incident. So this is just a couple of different screens with fields, but information that's important for my users to know how to log this information, and more importantly, for me to be able to collect this. So let's take a look at this app here. It's the same concept. I've got this launch screen where I've added some buttons that will navigate to these different screens. And these are components that we just saw, the sample app that the platform had created for me kind of through that wizard, that I can go through and I can select the appropriate fields that I want to display in those areas. When I'm creating a new incident, I have the capability of having that camera control or that photo control to be able to store that information. So now this information is stored in the system. This task-based Canvas app has served a great purpose for me. But we need to go beyond just simply capturing the detail. We need to take action on this. So one of the other app capabilities we have is what we call a model-driven app. So this is an example of a web interface that is a lot more, gives us more of a deep dive into the data and lets us be able to elaborate more on our processes, not just simply capturing an incident, but what are we going to do with that? So how can we manage that? I can manage incidents. I can manage contact information. Perhaps I'm in a call center and I'm answering calls from constituents or from citizens or from customers. I want to be able to have an application that can manage all that information. This is what the model-driven app will be able to give us that capability for. So let's take a look. We've had something new come in. I can refresh my screen, and here is that incident that we just logged. So within the user interface, if I look at our incidents here, I'll open up this one for the broken street lamp. And there I can see the photo. I can see the information available to us. Now I'm just going to do one thing quick on my screen while we're doing this. I'm just going to refresh this page because I did add another field. You saw me do this a little bit earlier where I added a field for the date assigned. So now I can see the details, the incident type, everything that was submitted by the user. I can see a priority. I think that this is actually a high priority. This is something that needs to get addressed right away. It's actually a safety issue, so I can say that this is urgent. I can provide a resolution of what we need to do. I'll just say routed to maintenance. And I can specify the date that we assign this. And I can also, with this particular issue, I can say that we've dispatched this and I'm going to assign this to another user to work on. So for example, I'm going to direct this over to Blake, who is in charge of our maintenance department, and I can assign this record to him. And when I do this, I'm updating that same table, that same data that the users would see within their Canvas app. So now we can see that's taken care of. I can save and close this, and I'm back to my incident. So now I can see that this one is dispatched. Once Blake resolves this, he can actually utilize another Canvas app to perform that maintenance, perform that activity, and then update this, and this will no longer appear in my list. So this is just an example of how you can utilize the Power Platform to quickly deploy a much needed application to your users and help cut down that time for development and get that information out to them right away so that they can better serve your organization, serve your agency, and serve, importantly, your citizens. So with that, Dave, I'll hand that back to you.
Thank you. Okay, so next we're gonna have Tim talk a little bit about Power BI, and then using that tool to start to make better sense and look at the data that you collect through these applications you develop as your business evolves. So Tim, we'll go ahead and Sarah, run your slides for you, so you can just go ahead and get started.
Perfect, Dave. Thank you for that. And Sarah, great demo on Power Apps and Power Automate. That was terrific, I think, and a great segue into Power BI. So I'll touch briefly here on Power BI. For those of you who haven't heard of it before, Power BI is simply put Microsoft's offering into the data analysis space. And so once you have your data, how will you go about drawing actionable insights from your data, turning them into charts, into dashboards, and using that as reference points to continue working on and with your processes and to improve later on the processes down the line. Power BI in a nutshell, this slide here, I think gives a pretty good indication of how data comes into Power BI, how we use it, and how you can consume it in multiple mediums on the far right. So on the left, data comes in either in a mixture of two different ways or one way individually. It can come in both from the cloud, so somewhere else in the network, or it can come in on premises, for example, a CSV spreadsheet or an Excel file. But that cloud ability is key because that gives Power BI and gives you the ability to pull up a Power BI dashboard on your mobile device, on a tablet, on a phone, on a web browser, and not have to be weighed down by having to install, for example, a desktop client on your computer. But data comes in through either the cloud or on premises. Inside Power BI, we can do a few different things. We can embed artificial intelligence to do stuff like natural language processing, create custom visualizations like charts, bar graphs, pie graphs, the things you would expect to see there. And then the key here is, since Power BI is built by Microsoft, it's part of this Power Platform framework. There is not out there a better solution for using and getting data and analysis from data inside of Office 365. And so after you have your dashboards finished, charts are finished, you can consume them in a few ways. As I said earlier, you can consume them over the web through a web browser, mobile device, either a tablet or a cell phone, Excel even. You can embed it a Power BI dashboard in Excel, for example, even Cortana. But really, Power BI is built to be as flexible as possible. So pretty much if anywhere that can render some type of iframe, you can embed a Power BI dashboard into. A key point here I want to indicate is, as being part of the Power Platform, Power BI is heavily integrated as part of Power Apps and Power Automate. So oftentimes I will work on solutions, or our team here works on solutions, or I have customers who do solutions where really Power BI goes hand in hand with Power Apps and with Power Automate. So you could, for example, embed a Power BI dashboard inside of a mobile application made through Power Apps. Like, for example, Sarah showed the mobile app on her phone where she could click on a button and submit a new incident case. You could have the same thing, except meant for leadership, to see a dashboard of data that has been gathered from that process of gathering incident data. Here is an example of a Power BI dashboard, and there are a few things here that I wanted to point out here with Power BI. The first of them is, if you're like me before using Power BI, you may have pulled up a multi-million row spreadsheet in Excel before and tried to plot out a graph or a line chart, for example, and you may have seen that it went pretty slowly. Power BI, the reason Power BI is capable of dealing with many millions of data points at one time and being efficient in doing so is because Microsoft made a proprietary language called DAX, which is DAX, which stands for Data Analysis Expressions, which is essentially a language made solely for the purpose of dealing with data at a high volume. And so you can be ensured that both on premises in the Power BI desktop client and in cloud, the data you are looking at, whether it be 50 rows or 50,000 rows or 5 million rows, it'll be quick and responsive as you go through and use it. And on that note too, the dashboards are meant to be very interactive. So as you go through, and you can see here on this graphic, you can very easily narrow down into specific data points in Power BI through Power Queries, or through slicers, we call them, to identify different parts of data and to narrow down specifically to what you want to look at. And this, I want to point out here that Power BI is not simply, and not only Power BI, but Power Apps and Power Automate. These are not products that we push to our customers, as something that they should use. Microsoft and Arctic IT alike use these products internally to run our day-to-day operations. So I know, as an example, Arctic IT, and feel free to fill in Dave or Sarah or Mary, but you guys use Power Apps to have a fitness tracking application that's meant to be used by people that don't know how to code, don't know how to develop code. And so I think that the term here I'm trying to get to is, that I've heard before, is we do eat our own dog food and we do drink our own wine here. So that's Arctic IT's example. And then at Microsoft, we have an application called TAR, which is essentially time off reporting, vacation reporting, that we use internally. And Microsoft is a company of 100 and something thousand people. And so we have this application that, again, was made internally by HR, not our professional developing team that made Power Apps, not our pro developers, but this was made by our human resources division, people who can't code, don't know how to use C# code or Java code, for example, made this application. And as you can see, it works. It's fully functional. It's used across our whole business, and it's really helped us a lot in saving time and improving visibility across the whole organization. And so I'll hand it off now back to Dave.
To kind of wrap up what we're talking about today with the Power Platform is to be able to, as it says here, power on your Power Apps journey. So with the ability of utilizing the Power Platform, we can empower your team with the ability to integrate with a lot of different functionality, like integration with Microsoft 365, Azure, and Dynamics 365. Everything that I showed you when we're developing that app and viewing data, we have the ability to integrate with Azure Active Directory. The concept of having a single sign-on, be able to have a user access data and be able to control security through role-based security, and not have to rewrite or develop your own security platform is a great benefit. Being able to utilize functionality like we have with Office 365, utilizing email, Outlook, utilizing Word and Excel, utilizing the capabilities that Microsoft has given us with the tools, the business application tools that we have. You saw that I could write without code. We can build the applications that we want when we need it. It doesn't have to be a long process to, as Dave mentioned, gather requirements, build up a bunch of wireframes, go through and have extensive code be developed for it. We have the ability to quickly deploy an app to our users to utilize as our business needs drive us to do that. With the Power Platform, one of the functionalities that we have is the Power Automate, and being able to connect to multiple data sources. So a lot of those essential business applications that you may have, there's more than likely a connector out there that we can use to connect to that information and integrate that within your Power Apps, integrate that within your applications and your data, so that you're not having to depend on so many disparate systems or different applications to do your job. Kind of finding a single place for you to be able to utilize that functionality. We talked about the security. When you have an application like we have with the Power App, being able to provide enterprise-grade security, having administrative controls to be able to wipe someone's phone if they're no longer with the organization, if there's a security concern. Controlling access to data down to the field level of what information people can look at, whether it be like a social security number, a date of birth, being able to protect that information and keeping your personal identifiable information for your customers, your citizens, your constituents, keeping that secure and keeping compliant to not to worry about data breaches or any concerns with that. It is a common data model. We have a consistent data schema that we can utilize throughout all organizations, all agencies, all departments within your organization. This single platform will give you that capability to bring in user experience and functionality from mobile applications, being able to use workflows and automation to help adapt to those processes, to help streamline and cut down the time it takes to do things, to work smarter and not harder. Dave, are you back?
I am back.
All right, I'll let you take over then.
All right, so you saw what it takes to build an app from scratch in the Power Platform. Set up the concept, define exactly what information you want to track, go into the interface, build the app, publish it. You might have to set some security, who can use it, what you want them to use it for. We do make it look simple, of course. It really is, however, that easy to get into the Power Platform. So what are a couple different options that you can use to get started? First things first, you can open up a trial for yourself. Work with your IT organization if you're not already in the IT organization within your firm, the different group that you might belong to. Let IT in on the fact that, hey, you want to check out Power Apps. If you are in IT, have at it. This should be a good playground for you. So open up that trial. Power Platform with Microsoft 365 or Dynamics 365, or you can do it standalone. Those three options are available to you. So once you get into Power Apps, there are templates. If you want to automate things from, let's say, Outlook or different types of communication, and you want to pull information back and forth between apps, there's quite a few integration drag and drop type templates that you can do. One of the best investments of time you can make as an individual, Microsoft and partners like Arctic IT offer these things called an app in a day, where we can use a full day's workshop where we go start to finish, and it's a training level exercise, but you're actually building your own applications and you're integrating these components in a live software environment. Really hands-on, really valuable. Current situation considered, we're doing virtual apps in a day. So we get online, hopefully not from inside a vehicle, because a hurricane hasn't just taken out your power and your internet, but we can do that from a remote perspective and walk you and your team, if you want, through an app in a day. Sometimes for our clients, what we'll do is they have an actual app that they want us to build, but they have several more that they're also in consideration for. Well, we say, okay, well, let's take one of them and use that as the app in a day exercise, so that when we're done, you guys actually have a functional application in your hands that you can work with, use, and deliver value, and then work off of that from there. So if you want to do the app in a day, you can go out to that website as well. Microsoft's hosting virtual ones at the same time. All right, questions. So Joanne, we have any questions from the audience?
I didn't see any questions come in, but we'll give you time to raise your virtual hand and I will unmute you, or you can put your question in the question mark box and we'll answer them.
Very good.
So we'll just, give it a few minutes.
Oh, I have one here, Joanne, that showed up in the chat. It says, how much does it cost to build a Power App? That's a pretty wide open question. But outside of saying your mileage may vary, you saw Sarah build a very simple application for a use case, an incident tracker. Depending on the complexity and the amount of time, you want to have someone like an Arctic IT, a partner, build that for you. Usually what we do is, this doesn't cost you anything. We'll talk to you about what's the use case, what technology do you currently have in place, is there any integrations, anything like that, and then what kind of investment do you have in that cloud subscription. We'll look at those things, give you some cost estimates for you to consider. Small Power App can usually be done in a few days worth of work, not very complex. We have some Power Apps that take us a year and a half to build, because it's a series of apps tying together applications in one platform over a new common data set, maybe replacing a legacy application that was 30 years old, for example. So that's going to be a much bigger scope. There are Power Apps projects that are millions of dollars. There are Power Apps that you can get done for, free if you end up learning the technology and do it yourself. So really, it's a pretty wide range. The key is that the investment in a platform that you continuously use over again, it's not a one-time point-in-time purchase. Hope that helps.
Okay. We did have another question that came in. Do the apps work without internet connection?
Oh, great question. So as of the past few years, if we build a Power App, a mobile Power App, then yes, we can deploy that onto the phone, like a mobile device. So here I have my Droid phone here, and we have a few Power Apps on there. And there's new functionality too that's in Power Apps that allows you to leverage things like the geocoding for photos taken on the phone. But the straight answer is yes, you can build a Power App that works on a mobile device or on a laptop without internet connectivity. You can store information in that Power App and then upload that information when the device gets connected.
As well as make sure that when you are going offline, what information do you need to have to function offline? You have the capability to figure out those filters, so you know that people are going to need this if they do happen to lose connectivity. So they're not kind of just sitting there, without information that they need to do their job.
Yeah, so you got drop-down lists and stuff like that would be contained in the app. But if say you're doing case management and you want to go site to site and you want to evaluate different case progress, or you want to do inspections on a piece of property or something like that, if you know ahead of time that you're going out to visit these 12 properties, you might download to that mobile device all of that information so that you have it in offline, so you can reference, add to it, and manipulate some of that data record information while you're not connected to the internet. When you get back online, all those updates are applied. Good point, Sarah.
Great. Well, I don't see any more questions coming in, but if anybody does have a question, you can see Dave, Sarah, and Tim's information if you want to shoot them an email. And with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us today.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have
Great
a great
job,
day.
guys. Bye-bye.